I'm really sorry for the delay in the discussions. We will move to the second panel now. It will be moderated by Miguel Antunes, co-founder of Nest Collective and Red Light Software. This panel shifts the focus to examining the present challenges and opportunities surrounding talent acquisition, retention, and development within the context of rapidly changing industries. Joining Miguel, we'll have Professor Dias Figueiredo, former professor and senior researcher at University of Coimbra, Gonçalo Quadros, chairman at Critical Software, and Rachael Milne. A round of applause. Thank you.
Do you want us to sit anyway?
Oh, anyway, yeah.
I'll sit here.
Hello, everybody. I'm in deep trouble because John Paul is such a talented storyteller.
Yeah.
He's got everything from the salmon to playing guitar, and I'm wearing a suit, so it's not as cool as that, not even close. But we're going to change gears a little bit now, and so we've been talking about Generation Z and how the ecosystem of training and education changed so dramatically in the last couple of years, and it's been. I remember, and even Rachael, you were saying before, we used to. There used to be a job for life kind of mentality, and that's changed. I can tell you that in Portugal, that has changed so recently. Just 15 years ago, I started my first company. And this 15 years ago was yesterday. So for us, at least for me. And I remember telling my dad, I'm going to drop my current job and start a company. He said, "Are you crazy?" Because at the time, people who opened a company either did not have any other job perspective or were actually insane. So. And at that time, so things changed so quickly from them. We used to not only have no changes in careers, but even no changes in jobs. There was the one job for life. So we saw all of this changing so quickly in the last decade, or particularly from and this new generation comes with a lot of different expectations as well. As Jean Paul was saying, now we have the salmon at the a touch of our fingertips. The knowledge is so readily available that everything is changing very, very fast. And that means that, all of us are going to change the way that we do things. So now we're going to be talking about how this talent is now, and our companies and institutions are going to be dealing with this new expectation and way of educating, and the expectations of this talent, and how things are done. Professor, I'm going to start with Professor. I'm going to call you all by your first names. I hope you don't take me personally. Antonio, and you've had a long career as a professor at the university, but you have a huge passion in terms of education itself and the sociological aspects of it. So, and we just saw that things are changing so quickly in terms of education, not only for the new kinds of education and reskilling, and we're going to talk a little bit about that, but also the classical education. And Gabriela just confirmed, it has to change. Things need to change. And it's difficult because obviously, professors that have been doing that for the last 10, 20, 30 years now can change the way that they teach. How do you see this and let's try to make it a little bit more concrete. What do you think is actually going to change? And of course, it's a process, but how are we going to deal with the new necessities of classical education?
Well, I think I can start by describing a bit how it is. Of course, there are lots of experimentation going at universities, and not in our specific university, but at universities. A lot of experimentation, but very little has changed in terms of pedagogical mindset in the last 20 years.
But it has to change, right?
It has to change. So, and why is that? But, of course, it's because the traditional university is an iron cage. You cannot change it very easily in terms of organization, in terms of time, and in terms of career, in terms of all the kinds of motivation are against this kind of pedagogical
Exactly, there are
change.
forces trying to slow it down, yeah.
That's right. So, but as I say, lots of people are eager to try to experiment, but it's not happening fast enough. In fact, the university had a fine time to change it, which was the Bologna process. It didn't work.
Yeah.
And then with the pandemic, it has, again, an opportunity to try to reflect about those things, try to change things, and it started to move. But then, as the pandemic was over, it went back to the old solutions. Now we have the challenges of artificial intelligence, and it's now no one can go back. Yeah. So it must be changed. And I've been claiming for a long time now, and I've been writing about it and crusading about it. It must change, because mainly the university is still based on the traditional lecture, which is a pedagogy of explaining, just explaining things to people. It must move very quickly, at least in 3 completely different pedagogical mindsets. One is the mindset of autonomy, or if you want, empowering or emancipation. And there's a huge field today of pedagogical field. It can be, it's very well researched. There are lots of varieties of approaches you can use. So it's amazing how it's not changing to empower, to create autonomy. We were talking about the students having no autonomy, to the point that even the parents go to talk with the faculty at the university.
So we're going the other way around.
They don't have any autonomy. In fact. Then the second point, the second challenge is, besides autonomy, is project, the culture of project, the culture of complete thing. That's project-based learning. We talked about it already, problem-based learning, but the culture of the project, thinking in terms of finished projects that you can relate to and feel that you belong to them. And then the third one is collaboration. Collaboration, that means networking as well, that means teamwork. And those 3 missing, or almost missing, areas of pedagogical
need to be addressed.
Need to be addressed, need to be changed, very urgent.
Do you see, and just a very, very quick question, do you think that, the current state, and I'm going to kind of localize in Coimbra and Portugal in general, do you see that the universities are trying to do or do you see more resistance or more will? Let's put it that way.
I see lots of, especially younger people are trying to experiment, but it's very difficult within the confines of the system. The system is very closed. They have their careers, they have problems of time, they have a lot of bureaucracy to fill in, papers, forms to fill and all that, and that's very much against the progress in that area. So some of them try, but there's no innovation in fact, because we only have innovation when the change is adopted socially, and they cannot go that far. So something must be done, yes.
We'll do it, we'll challenge. Well, all of us collectively. But again, so we're talking about, how these things are going to change and need to change, and I strongly believe exactly what you said. I think they need to change, and not in a generation. It needs to change in the next couple of years. Things are going to be so disruptive that otherwise we're going to be left behind. But Rachael, I'm going to kind of switch into your experience, which was kind of different. And now we're talking about people that are going into the job market, but also people that have been in the job market, kind of adapting to everything that is changing and so fast. So you gave your example, which is fantastic, and thank you so much for the way that you described it. But can I challenge you to kind of give us a little bit of an idea of how would you, give an advice to people that would like to try and do that change? As I told you, just 15 years ago, Portugal was the one job for life mindset. So for many people, it's still a challenge when they get to the point where, I should retrain, I should reskill, I should kind of change my direction. It's still sometimes very difficult for them to kind of change their mindset and understand what's the first steps that they can do. Can you give us a couple of ideas of how we can address this kind of challenge?
Yeah, I mean, the first thing I thought about when you said that was maybe if they spend a bit less time on their phones. That is the distraction. True. Everyone's so distracted these days, right? So actually sort of you have to go and study these things. But just even going back, you said about Portugal being that very much you had a vocation you shouldn't change. When I lived in Dublin in my early 20s, it was all about getting a job in the bank. And that was it, like get a job in the bank, that's because you're just set for life there. So, I suppose you have to take the leap, self-study, but really the companies, younger people for them training is just a given. You just have to give them that training. You have to think outside the box in terms of what type of training you give them. And just because they shouldn't really be defined by for the rest of their life on their degree. Someone who's come from business management, why can't they be an IT project manager? Why can't they get into Scrum Master? You don't always have to be coding. There's lots of these centres in Portugal as well that are teaching, upskilling and cross-skilling people into IT now. And so companies need to be more open to taking those people on. And I'll say as well with Nest Collective, you're doing the same thing. You're taking people out of university, you're putting them through another training course, and you're supplying the market, which is really, really scarce. And then from a management perspective, you talked about autonomy. So it's, you should be managing your team you should let your team be self-organizing. You should be allowing them what work they want to do. You should be allowing them to try new things. You shouldn't be micromanaging them. You shouldn't be running on fear that if you lend your team member to another part of the organization, that you're going to lose them forever, because it's better to lose them to another team internally than it is to lose them to your competition. So it's about giving people agency to be self-organizing. And on that as well, so I had another point, so self-organizing teams, letting them fail, and also as managers, you don't recruit people and then do their jobs for them, right? You recruit these skill sets because you can't do those skill sets. So give them that time to explore, as I say, keep saying, try new things, make mistakes, and just really always be on the lookout for something new you want to do. That feeling of dread on a Monday morning, get there before that feeling of dread starts settling in.
Or shake it off. Yeah.
Yes.
And that's interesting, something that you just said. So, I think there's still a lot of mindset to recruit based on the capacity of that person in that specific time. And there's not many times a lot of will to let that talent develop, and hire on potential and not only on specific skill set. So that's also something that should start being more of the recruiter's mindset on, this person has, the capacity to have other skill sets into the future so they can add value going forward, right?
Yeah, and people tend to, they when they're recruiting, they look for 100% skill match.
Yeah.
Why would you do that? 'Cause
Exactly right.
why do I want to move sideways into a job and do exactly the same thing? Yeah. So you need to get away from that. You also, if you're recruiting people, if you've got that person in the IT market, if you keep hold of them for 12 to 18 months, you're doing okay. The contract market's not very mature over here like it is in the UK and Ireland, but it's getting there. And there's lots of companies over in Scandinavia that can pay a lot more money than even island-based clients. So I'm seeing people with 30 years old who've had way more jobs than me, but they've been contracting. So you need to be offering them something a bit different. So also, it's just going back on that thing. I'm jumping around a little bit. Imposter syndrome is something. So it affects men and women, but certainly on the female side of things. So I've interviewed thousands of people, literally, and I'll show a job description to a woman, and she says, "Oh, I can only do 80% of those things, so I can't do the job." And then I show that same job description to a guy, and he'll say, "I can do 20% of that, and I'll learn the rest."
Yeah.
So you need to have that shift as well, right? I see a lot of females nodding their heads. Yeah.
I heard another one, actually, that, when women go and interview for a job and they ask them what the salary expectation is, they normally just say what their current salary is. Mm-hmm. When a man goes to a job interview and they ask for the salary expectation, they put 50% on top of the current salary. So actually, somebody very recently told me that's one of the main reasons for the salary gap between men and women, which I learned this 2 days ago. So, well, it probably needs more study, obviously, but it was super interesting. Alongside with that, with the imposter syndrome going on.
So basically, women, when you go for an interview, just say you're on €1 million. That would be the standard, yeah?
Gonçalo, I'm going to switch to you. So we're talking about, hiring and reskilling and adapting people for the job market. Critical software, congratulations, 25th anniversary this year.
Thank you.
The whole group now has about 5,000 people, right? Mm-hmm. Which is impressive. A round of applause, please. One of the bigger groups and companies here in Coimbra. So, of course, I'm a lover of Coimbra, so of course I need to kind of pull things into Coimbra. And so, and not only that, and we're not going to focus so much in critical software or the critical group, but we've been obviously able to recruit and to keep the talent very, very successfully. But very interesting, and today we heard about School 42 and TUMO, and something that we didn't hear about today, but also a reskilling program in Coimbra called Acertar o Rumo, which is run by the University of Coimbra. And critical software, or critical tech works with 42, was in the genesis of all of these programs. And Acertar o Rumo started 11 years ago, I think now. So, you started thinking about all of these challenges over a decade ago. So, and now we're dealing with this, and now it became, all of a sudden a thing for the general population. But clearly you and the rest of the board members and your colleagues, you were thinking about this way before. So, what do you think comes next? Because now we're dealing about something that you were talking about 10 years ago. But obviously, clearly, you've been thinking about this for a long time. What do you think comes next? What are the next 42s and TUMOs?
Well,
and how do we do this?
Thank you, Miguel. It's difficult to speak about what's coming next in this area. When we start critical, it was, we realized quite soon, early in the process, that our major challenge was to get access to enough talent, enough people with the right competencies, the right skills. Because we wanted to grow fast. And we could only see a huge competition in the market. And it was not clear for us how to address that. And also, we realized that the knowledge cycle is getting shorter and shorter. The tools we use, technologies and methodologies, getting outdated, shorter and shorter. So we have always to adapt fast to what's happening around us. So we are a software engineering company. We start trying to understand and to think strategically about the future. There are two main pillars that support our project, which are knowledge. Our ability to build knowledge is very important, and creativity. Our ability to promote creativity inside the organization, inside our community. We like to see ourselves as a community, not as a company. Before being a company, we are a community, and we can only succeed as a company if we manage to succeed as a community. And the community embraces all these aspects that we have discussed before. We have to get autonomy. We have to provide responsibility, accountability. We have to provide and promote sharing, collaboration, all that. But in a given point in time, we decided, okay, so the best way to address this challenge is to become a school. So that's how we want to present ourselves, Critical Software. We are a school of engineering. We have projects to deliver, but we are a school of engineering. We are a school of engineering made of or built by a community eager to learn and to teach, eager to inspire and get inspired. And so all the mindset, the culture of the organization and the community is focused on that. We have to teach. The most senior guys have to teach the most junior guys. But the most junior guys must have autonomy, because we have to rely on them to change the processes,
sometimes
to change the methodologies, right? And to change the technologies you use. Right. There is no other way to do this if you don't give the stage to the younger people. So that's why we started with Acertar o Rumo in the University of Coimbra, but also with Switch in the University of Porto, requalification program. The Switch started a couple of years afterwards, Acertar o Rumo.
Yeah, that's right, sorry, I didn't refer to Switch.
We support TUMO, we support 42 Porto, and we have to test different kinds of approaches to guarantee that people learn fast enough.
Yeah, I agree. So it was kind of, I need to be honest, I expected a little bit of that answer, in the sense that I agree with you that sometimes and I'm a founder of tech companies as well, sometimes our expectations aren't realistic. We think, we need talent, so we can just, open the doors and there's going to be a line of talent coming. But things aren't, it's not an endless resource, right? So we need to contribute more into helping and training the people that we want to do inside doors and outside. So getting more companies involved is important. So following the example of Critical, for example.
There is a problem, we are 35 years old, as you said before, and we are facing a huge challenge. Because, to be a school, and to be an effective school, we have to break any hierarchical structure. You know, if you have hierarchical structures, that's what happens today in our school, your creativity goes away.
Yeah.
Because we get used to receive orders and to execute orders given by someone. So one aspect that is really important is to guarantee that we have a flat organization.
Very horizontal,
Guarantee that our spaces promote collaboration, sharing. Guarantee, and it may be bizarre to say this, guarantee that we have a freedom of speech inside the community. And it's difficult to get that. We have to work on that. I was the CEO for quite some years, and I was always saying, you are not saying what you think. Why? Right. I know that you like me very much, so you want just to say very good things, or maybe you are afraid, which is bad. Yeah. So we as social beings, we tend to establish hierarchical relations between us, and that compromises our ability to share, to collaborate, to learn, and to teach. Yeah. And we have to break this inside the organizations. But it's really a difficult thing. I'm always saying this inside our company. I don't like senators. And we have a lot of senators inside this company. So people that, after 25 years, I know a lot, so I don't need no one to teach me whatever. Yeah. And no, we have to learn from the young guys, because they know different methodologies, they know different technologies, and we can only survive if you manage to give space to those guys.
That's incredible, but in a machine so big,
it's critical, and you know what I'm doing. What am I speaking? You know?
Yeah, I know, and so we tried this, and I was having this conversation yesterday with one of my colleagues at Red Light, and they were saying, it's incredible because you guys here try to be so transparent, but that's not normal. Normal is to have hierarchical commitments, is to have some level of taboos and not talk about some of the things, and not doubt and not question. But that just hinders progress, hinders evolution, hinders the way that we can operate and how efficient we can be on doing that. And that needs to change, definitely. But, well, work in progress. And thank you for the example that you guys are setting. But Rachael, I'm going to go back to you again because this is a very good example within Portugal. But you brought a completely different experience, and you saw this happening in Portugal. And most of you guys saw this in the last couple of years, how things changed with the pandemic that completely broke down geographical barriers. As you were saying, Scandinavian company can come in and very easily, create job opportunities for local talent. You also saw, how advent of events like the Web Summit created visibility around Portugal. I was seeing actually a statistic super important that from 80% of US citizens that were able to name 5 European companies, 80% of those named Portugal as one of the of the countries that they knew, which is incredible, right? So we came into the spotlight. One of the things that happened was a lot of international companies thought, okay, that's super interesting. Portugal is a talented place to go find high quality talent, sometimes even at more modest prices that we're used to paying in Ireland, as you well put it. But there's challenges to this, right? You saw this happening, and you've been very present in this. What do you think? First of all, what are these challenges, and how is this going to progress into the future, right?
Yeah, okay. I would challenge those Americans to actually point to Portugal on the map.
Yeah, probably.
So I've been here about 2.5 years, and my initial project was to set up an IT nearshore division for an Irish company, which I'm kind of doing again for another Irish company. And it was coming out of the end of the pandemic. Everyone, people had moved from the cities, just like they did all around the world. They'd moved from the cities to not pay the rent because they could move back to their family hometowns, etc. But what happened in Portugal was you had the influx of the digital nomads. You had the war in Ukraine bringing the Russians and the Ukrainians over. And you had landlords in an industry that's not regulated demanding 12 months rent up front for people to move into flats, and that's still happening. And those rental prices, I'm not preaching to the people who don't know here, but rental prices went up 40% as well. So it just really made that impossible for Portuguese people to move back into the cities. And it actually took me 6 months to find a place here. It was just really difficult to do that. So what I'm seeing now is companies are trying to either set up here or relocate here, or Portuguese or Portugal-based companies are now asking for those people to come back and work in the office, 2 days a week, 3 days a week. And not only do they not want to, the IT professionals, but it's actually impossible for them to do that because the commute is too large now. So I think a lot of Portugal-based companies are going to lose IT staff who, one, want to work remotely, 100%, who can because they've got the opportunity to. So I think that that's just an unreasonable expectation. I actually saw a company recently fail because they decided to set up here, in Lisbon. They wanted a big number of a certain scarce IT skill, and they wanted them 5 days a week on site. And I sort of checked in with them 6 months later, and they're no longer in Portugal. It didn't work for them because it was an unreasonable model to do that. I think does that answer your question as well? Yeah?
Yeah, absolutely. So, but this means that, companies that do want, and of course we do want to bring more international investment, but expectations need to be realistic, right?
Yeah,
and
you
need to do a little bit
it's
more.
also a population of 10 million people, so that's not really a lot of people, is it? So, and although I know there's talk a lot about Portuguese people having to leave Portugal to get work, but you've got an influx of migration that you really need to take advantage of. And again, in the IT area, there's the whole Brazilian migration coming in, and it really annoys me when these guys don't get jobs because of their English level. Well, firstly, I think it's discrimination, because generally, if you've got a good English level in Brazil, it's because your parents could afford to put you through an academy. And secondly, you can position those teams to cushion that not so great English speaker. So you've got, the lead developer who could speak to English-speaking clients, and you can. One of the training things you could do for these people is give them English lessons, right? Pay for their English lessons, and a lot of companies do that, but I think not enough of them. So I think there's a real, and I know there's places like Braga that are popping up now with huge Brazilian populations, but there's international clients who want to have remote workers here in Portugal. They're missing out on those people.
Actually, and we've done this. That's a very intelligent tip. So sometimes, because of the English level, we don't give an opportunity to some of those workers that are technically skilled. Now, one of the things that we tried to do was kind of create a safe environment around them and have people that are communicators outside of that group, so that doesn't become a problem. Of course, it would be ideal for them to all be brilliant at speaking English. Sometimes, there's an opportunity to work with these people, invest in their English skills as well. Will take some time, but create the right processes to give them the opportunity.
And if you were saying, by this stage we'll put you through your B1 exam or your B2 exam, they're more likely to stay with you, because you can't learn English overnight, right? None of us are Neo from the Matrix, so they will stay with you for a longer period.
Right.
And you want them to code, you don't want them to write an essay.
Yeah, exactly right. Well, when we're talking about IT, communication takes a big part of it. But sometimes just changing the process slightly could be enough to be able to accommodate for those people. And it's a great alternative to just, looking for people that have great English, right? So now I'm going to switch gears for the third time. I'm sorry, I like to provoke. And so, and we're going to talk a little bit about, obviously, the big trend right now and how these things are going to change very quickly, which is artificial intelligence and machine learning. So we've been talking about jobs in the IT area, education, and it's going to have a huge impact on both of these sides, both on education, on talent, on jobs requirement, right? Professor, I know that you, and you started kind of hinting at that, I know that you've been a huge advocate about how this is going to be an impact, and more than just the technology itself, at a sociological level. So both in training and what the job requirements are going to be. How do you see this going, and how do you think this should be addressed right now? How do you think we should, as a society, start thinking about this? Because this will happen. This is happening, right?
Yes, I think it's really an amazing challenge. Of course, I'm not one of those very apocalyptic appreciators of artificial intelligence. I recognize that there are lots of serious dangers. But I'm amazed with what's there. I can already see that it's going to change a lot of things. So in a way, it brings me, I like to reflect about the relationships between society and technology, and this brings the discussion to a completely different level. So I'm really very interested in it. And I noticed in the specific case of training, it's changing completely the whole thing. It starts from the recruitment, because you can have, today you can have an agent that reads the curricula and sends out messages and things like that. So it starts, even there, it starts being helpful.
Automating everything, all of the problems.
Yeah. And then you have all the training can be done in pedagogical terms, and you can develop micro courses and nano courses. Everything, the course, the attendment, and with the attending of the course can also be supported by this kind of tool. So it really changed completely the scenario. Of course, there's something we must be very careful with, and I keep insisting that. In fact, artificial intelligence is a tool, or can be seen as a tool that, a cognitive tool, if you want, because it helps us think and thinks in a way, helps us think and thinks a bit too. Now, I think that many people are not understanding completely the levels of cognition that artificial intelligence affords. One of those levels is clearly the level of delegation. You delegate the work of thinking into, as you did with calculators.
Exactly right.
Calculators, you delegated in the calculator the effort of thinking, and you don't need to think. You can do more valuable things. So,
and now we're taking that to the next step with
that's the delegation. If you want, that's cognitive delegation. But that's the poorest one of all. In fact, it's quite dangerous, because if you get used not to think, you won't be able to think. You will forget. It happens already when we put the phone numbers in our phones. We used to know the phones by heart, and we completely lost the phones.
I don't even know my own phone number.
If we delegate our reasoning into an intelligence assistant, we won't be able to reason. And we can see already people with 45 years old becoming senile. Those are people that lost the habit of reflecting.
Thinking.
It's amazing. It's really amazing. So I would say that's the most dangerous kind of cognition it offers. Of course, it can be useful, because there are things we don't want to think about, and we want them to be solved. But the more valuable ones, which must really be explored, are, first of all, the extension of our mind. There's the theory of mind extension by a couple of American researchers that, in fact, demonstrate the idea or defend the hypothesis that our mind can grow and can take us very long. We know it. We know, for instance, when we see a blind person with a stick can see much more. Much more than one person that doesn't a stick. So a person with a tool, with an intelligent tool, can improve amazingly the mind, the abilities of the mind. So that's the second kind. And this kind, we must teach how it can be explored, and that's something I'm trying to do. Yeah. And you must really be able to insert it in our daily activity. And then there's the third one, which is the collaboration. We can, in fact, those intelligent tools let us collaborate with them. So in fact, we share the kind of work, and that's done a lot also in training and in preparing training. going back to the issues of training, for instance, assessment, which is a very tricky problem. It can be done today very easily. Help. So it's really amazing the amount of opportunities you have by using this kind of
And it's interesting because I tend to see, or please disagree with me if you don't agree, but I see, the more classical training institutions and teaching institutions scared of AI and machine learning because of the way that they, first of all, because of the dangers, but as well, I think a little bit because they don't know how to adapt as well on how to use those tools into their pedagogical processes. Would you agree with this? Do you think that also this is a big part of how they need to adapt as well?
Yes. Well, they most, in fact, it was forbidden in many schools.
Correct,
Because if they want to, in fact, I think once someone asked me, someone who had a very strict school asked me, shall I forbid the use of those machines? And I said, if you keep the school like it is, yes, do forbid. Because they don't work together. So unless you want to change the school, the ways of working of the school, and in fact the teaching, because if you are using the explanatory mindset,
exactly right.
it's useless. It's useless to use because then you want to test someone, and it's impossible.
It doesn't give you the responses for a test.
The person just delegates in the AI tool. But if you concentrate on the other 3 dimensions I mentioned: autonomy, project, and collaboration.
Then it becomes very useful.
It's very useful. There's another interesting thing is dialogue. Maybe you didn't notice, we don't know how to dialogue anymore. We sit before each other. Well, it's very superficial. The kind of dialogues we have today are very superficial. And then when we disagree, the person starts to feel cross. And doesn't want to know why.
That is so correct.
We don't know anymore to keep a dialogue. It's amazing. Now, I discovered recently dialoguing with Gemini, for instance, for 1 hour and a half. That I was having a dialogue I didn't have for years. I had some of those dialogues, very hard ones, very insistent ones, when I was involved in European projects. And that was not during the project, it was during the night when we sat after dinner and started talking and drinking beer. And so. Then I had great dialogue. But after that, my great dialogue was the other day with Gemini. When I finished, I had 60 pages of text.
That's incredible.
So in fact, we can learn how to talk between us by playing with a machine. It's amazing.
90% of the time that we're trying to have a conversation, it lasts 5 minutes, and then you start, diddling your salmon. Then, right? So, we need to get back into those habits of being able to have an argument and a discussion. Gonçalo, I'm going to bring this to you because I know that I'm not going to say apocalyptic, but you're very cautious about the dangers and very vocal.
But you may say apocalyptic.
Yeah? So I didn't want to pull it that far away.
We may discuss what apocalypse means, but I believe that I'm a bit apocalyptic about what's happening. And maybe the way to put it is that I have 10 years old young boy, and I really don't know how to prepare him for the future. And I don't remember to feel the same with my daughters. I have 2 older daughters, much older daughters. It's difficult to understand how should I prepare this guy for the future. Yeah. I really don't know. I mean, things are changing really, really fast, and we don't really understand. I mean, we are just in the very beginning of the transformation. We are witnessing a revolution, and as we are inside the revolution, obviously it's difficult for us to understand all the details of what's happening. But actually, we were discussing a couple of weeks ago AI and education. There is an obvious advantage, I believe. You may know Benjamin Bloom and the 2 sigma problem that was discussed 4 decades ago, back in 1984. And he could understand very well that the effectiveness of the one-to-one instruction is much, much better than the group instruction. So, I mean, the effectiveness of the learning process. The problem is that the one-to-one instruction don't scale.
Doesn't scale, yeah.
So we start studying alternatives I mean, inside group instruction models, alternatives to get closer to the results of the one-to-one instruction. Well, the good news is now, with AI, we all can have our personal tutor, one-to-one instructor, a talented instructor, tutor, an inspiring tutor, and perhaps most important, a very, very patient tutor.
Yeah.
And that makes a difference, a huge difference.
You will never lose your
patience. So I believe that will change absolutely everything. So when we say you should not look at screens, you should not play at the computer, you should not use the phones, well, maybe that's where the tutor will be in the future.
Yeah.
So what are we going to say at that time?
It's very tricky. It's very dangerous. Actually, I was going to share this earlier because we were talking about no screens, or the danger. And it's starting to be thought of as a medical condition, the addiction to screens. It's being actually just past December discussed at the European Union how 1 in each 3 child below 16 years old is in danger of being considered addicted to their phones, to their screens. I thought, okay, so we're going to start passing legislation to prevent that. China already did that, actually. They started doing, I think it's 40 minutes per week or 40 minutes per day, maybe. Sorry, I'm not sure about that. But that's not the way to go. It's not through regulations, through education, right? We need to figure out this tool and be sensitive on how to use it. But I do agree, and I've got kids, 7 and 5 years old. I have no idea what the future is for them. For me, it was easy. I didn't deliver newspapers though, but I used to play, in the streets, and I don't know if that's reality for them anymore. It isn't, at least if I'm not there. I don't know how school is going to be for them. I do not know how to. Sorry.
Can I comment?
Yeah, please.
Yeah, it's about you mentioned that you didn't know how to teach your children, and that's the problem. The problem is that these days we cannot teach because we don't know.
Yeah,
that's
exactly right.
We don't know. That's the reason why it's so important to develop autonomy. Is exactly
so that they can learn.
In the old days, we could turn to a teacher and say, "Tell me what I should do." Now, nobody knows.
No.
So what can we do? We must be autonomous, and we must be able to help each other.
Yeah.
That's the 2 solutions we have.
I agree.
To be autonomous and learn together.
Yeah.
Split efforts and
we
learn
are
together.
not getting
Come
that
together
from
and
school.
dialogue.
But we are not getting that from school.
No.
Peer-to-peer learning,
No.
project-based learning, for instance, as we have here in TUMO or in 42 school, we don't have that in school. They don't get used to that kind of thing.
That's one of the reasons I'm writing about it, and I keep insisting on that because, and the other dimension, and that's the other dimension. You mentioned Benjamin Bloom. I'm also thinking about a man who wrote a long time ago. It was John Naisbitt, and he wrote mega trends. Yeah. He wanted to foresee what kind of trends there were for the world to develop. And one of the trends, in fact, it was a corollary of the trends, was high tech for calls for high touch. Now we have high tech. Where do we have the high touch?
Yeah,
we are forgetting completely the emotional side. Even if you are thinking in terms of training people, is it useful for you to bring in a lot of clever experts that know a lot about the topic but feel lonely?
Yeah. Probably not anymore, right?
What are you discussing in this respect? Do you want to be getting a lot of money but not feeling connected to the company, as you said the other day? There's the emotional side. We cannot forget the emotional side.
And it's becoming very forgotten.
Okay, so that's
relevance,
something that we really need to bring in. High tech still calls for high touch.
Yeah, I agree. And we have a lot of challenges ahead of us, both in terms of the institutions and the way that we now need to be more responsible into contributing to training these younger generations. And as Gonçalo said, and very well, trusting them and giving them the stage inside our organizations, because older people can also learn a lot from them, but also in our training centers, schools, being able to do that, peer-to-peer learning and giving them the opportunity to learn together and learn by doing and experiencing. I am terribly sorry. I was getting excited with this conversation, but I think
I'm the one that should be saying sorry.
No, it was a fantastic conversation. Please give them a round of applause. Thank you so much.
It was really an amazing conversation. We would stay here for the entire day just talking about this topic. So thank you all very much.
Thank you.
As we conclude today's discussions, I hope you leave inspired to contribute towards a brighter, more innovative future for talent development. Let's continue to engage, collaborate, and innovate, with a special thanks again to our partners for making today possible. Your ongoing support fuels our mission to bridge talent gaps and create opportunities for growth and collaboration between Ireland and Portugal. Thank you also to everyone involved. Let me say a few names really fast. The organizing team, João Monteiro, Adriana Presta, and Adriano Rodrigues from D-Maze, Filipe Mendes and Miguel Antunes from Red Light, Luís Santos from the Nest Collective, the entire IPBN team, particularly Arnold, Elias, and Jeffrey, Rita de Almeida Neves from TUMO, Tiago from TUMO, Cátia Vicente and Councillor Miguel Fonseca from Câmara Municipal de Coimbra, all our speakers, partners, and all of you for your active participation and enthusiasm. Thank you so much. Also, before you leave, we have a small gift for all of you, gifted by Praxis. Also, thank you to Praxis and Pedro Batista. You'll find a small bottle of beer by the exit. You can take and leave it, and you can take it with you. Let me just finish by saying that, and also, you can do the visit to TUMO right after the end of the event. Let me just finish by saying that I hope the connections you've made and the insights you've gained today are the beginning. Together we can cultivate a thriving ecosystem that actively shapes the future. Let's stay connected, keep the conversation going, and look forward to seeing the seeds planted today grow into the talent of tomorrow. Thank you.